From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Top of the morning to all of you amazing people here. That's not our headline story today. We've got a packed show starting with LOG4J has a new patch. And I just want to say I said it last week. I said, listen, we were at 2.15. We're at 2.16. We got to 2.17. Now we're at 2.17.1. So we'll get to that and a lot more on today's show. We're also going to be talking about LastPass and something that's going on with those folks over there. Iran is behind the Cox Media Group attack. We'll talk about that as well. And also the story that you just saw pop right in front of your faces if you're watching us live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, which is Poland's Donald Tusk calling spyware a threat or a crisis for democracy. We'll talk about all that and more as people try to get cyber into the political crosshairs. So stay tuned. We've got a packed show. Thank you all for being here. Larry Rosen, good morning to you from Apex, North Carolina. Joel, are you ready for more Log4j? It's never going to end. Yes, it is. It's never going to end. Larry Rosen with probably the winner of Log4Eva. Yep. Good morning to Finley, who's joining us from Central Indiana. Good morning from the Frozen Tundra. Who do we have from the Frozen Tundra today? John Delacruz, good morning to you, good sir. And Eddie, good morning to you from Big Dallas, Texas. One of my favorite places in the country, folks. We've got a packed show. So before we do that, I've got to enjoy my hot, smoldering, highly caffeinated, very concentrated morning drink. Mr. Fulong, if you weren't here, buddy, coffee cup cheers, folks. My double espresso, whatever you're having this morning, enjoy it. This is going to be a great show today, folks. We thought Christmas was over. You guys all open your gifts. Some of you have returned the stuff you don't want. You may have even repurposed it for someone and gave it a few days later to someone else because, well, why would you? Cheers for all for Tyler. And Tom, good morning to you. The gift that keeps on giving. Bob, good morning to you as well, good sir. Let's talk about this Log4j with the new patch release. So the Apache Software Foundation rolled out a fresh set of patches to contain an arbitrary code execution flaw in Log4j that could be abused by threat actors to run malicious code on affected system, making it the fifth security shortcoming to be discovered in the tool in the span of a month. So track the CV 2021-44832. The vulnerability is rated 6.6 in the severity on a scale of 10, but impacts all version of the logging library from 2.0 Alpha 7 to 2.17.0, with the exception of 2.32 and 2.12.4. While Log4j versions 1.x are not affected, users are recommended to upgrade to Log4j 2.3.2 for Java 6, 2.12.4 for Java 7, or 2.17.1 for Java 8 and later. If you're still using Java at this point, I have to ask you a question. Why? Just why? Here's the thing about this. All of the comments here are absolutely 100% true. And what I mean by that is this Log4j vulnerability is going to be with us for a very long time. And the patching of it is only going to take care of the known holes that exist. What we don't know yet, what we probably won't know for quite some time, okay, is going to be how did Russia, China, Iran, capable, very, very capable nation-state adversaries have taken advantage of Log4j? What vulnerabilities have they found that we haven't yet? What systems have they compromised that we haven't found yet as well? The complexity of this vulnerability, although, is much higher than some of the previous ones who had a CVSS score of 9.0 and 10.0. You may ask yourself why. It's a great question because this is a bit more significant. yet it has a lower score in the CVSS scale. There's a lot to this. So there's intelligence agencies from Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the UK, and the US. The Five Eyes have all issued a joint advisory warning of mass exploitation of multiple vulnerabilities, which essentially means that all five of them now have some level of access to this log4j vulnerability, and they're taking advantage of it. So they're issuing a very blank warning about mass exploitation of multiple vulnerabilities, folks. This isn't one. And I think that's the thing about this. When we looked at previous 0 days or these types of security events before, it was typically one thing in there. You fix it, that's pretty much it. At least that's been predominantly the experience. With log4j, what we are seeing is something a little bit more significant. And it's a lot more, it's a bit more significant for a bunch of different reasons. One, it's inherently flawed to begin with. Java's at end of life. There's literally no more support for Java almost, right? So this is affecting a lot of legacy systems that are used by some of the world's most prestigious companies. And that's who it's impacting. It's not really impacting the new startup in the garage because those guys aren't using Java. But it is impacting a lot of the older companies, and we're really not going to see the full impact of this come until March, April, May. Take SolarWinds last year, right? We discovered it in December. We didn't really know the full impact. We had all kinds of side stories, very similar to what we're seeing here today, right? But we knew that Microsoft was the main victim of SolarWinds, right? We knew that SolarWinds was the entrance key into the Microsoft ecosystem, of which is being used by 70-80% of organizations and governments worldwide, right? So that's how they got into Microsoft. So keep your eyes out for this one, folks. This is going to stick with us for a while. And I haven't seen that, Tom. To your comment there, I will look it up though, I promise. Let's move on to our next story. So LastPass, a major password vault of sorts that people use, it's a password manager, said today that threat actors have launched a credential stuffing attack against some of its users in an attempt to gain access to their cloud-hosted password vault. The company said that it has not seen any evidence that accounts were successfully compromised in the recent attack that appears to have started earlier this week. LastPass confirmed the attack after tens of users went online today to share that they received security alerts, emails from the company claiming it blocked the login attempt with a correct master password from a foreign IP address, typically based in Brazil. The credential stuffing attack is when hackers take username and password combinations, leak through data breaches, and attempt to make and gain access to specific sites. It's really smart to go after LastPass, right? You go after someone, you get all of their passwords from there, abuse and do what you want. At this point, there's been no one who's been compromised by this, but it just lets you know that we always talk about multi-factor authentication and password managers, and all those things are going to be really, really helpful. They are in some ways, but then here's the other aspect of it. The human factor is still in there, right? And the human factor is about security culture. And how do you drive that culture? Because this was an awareness of users that made this happen. And typically, password vault users are IT and security people, so they tend to be a little bit more vigilant than, let's say, your average PC or a Mac user who would have looked at this and been like, oh, wow, there's a security alert. Let me click the link and log in and see what's going on. So that also could have been the case as well. They were also probably checking for the how people react to this. This could have been a test run at something greater. So keep your eyes out for that as well. Iranian attackers were behind the Cox Media Group ransomware attack that crippled its IT system and live streams of Cox radio and TV stations earlier this year. Was the work of Iran, according to the record. The attack has been attributed to threat actors tracked under the codename of Dev0270, a group linked to several intrusions against U.S. companies this year and have ended in the deployment of ransomware. While the intrusion of Cox Media Group came to light on June 3rd when the attackers deployed their ransomware and encrypted some internal servers, the group had actually breached and been lurking inside the company's internal network for weeks since mid-May. The attack didn't impact all of Cox Media Group's radio and TV station, but managed to cripple the ability of some stations to broadcast live streams on their site. Obviously, there was some downplaying of the attack, but to see that this was Iran lets you know just what they're going after. Iran is known in the geopolitical world to want to target these types of media organizations. It actually serves their best interest to do so, since they are trying to sway public opinion across the Western Hemisphere for a new GCPOA type of agreement. So no surprise there that Iran has increased their cyber capabilities this year at all. So, keep that in mind as well. And our final story for the day. Donald Tusk, he was the former EU chief. So this is a guy who pretty much was the president of the EU for quite some time. Said on Tuesday that government spying on their political opponents is the biggest crisis for democracy since the end of communism. Tusk called for a parliamentary inquiry into the allegation that Pegasus was used against Krzysztof Baraja, a member of his party who coordinated its 2019 election campaign. Citizen Lab, who has a Canada-based cybersecurity watchdog, said Pegasus has also been used against Roman Gierchik, a lawyer involved in cases against the ruling and Justice Party, and Eva Warseks, a prosecutor and opposition figures. The malware, which was created by NSO, was engulfed in controversy. NSO is obviously trying to rid of that business. Some people refer to this as the Polish version of Watergate. Nonetheless, this kind of brings up the idea of who is responsible for use of a product you sell. And I'm not going to go out and straight defend NSO Group. We don't know all the details, but here's an aspect. If I sell you something, am I responsible for how you use it? And I think this sets a dangerous precedent in security. Because what happens when this gets turned over to pen testing or vulnerability scanning or data inquiries or visibility? Would that also be considered spying? Meaning, if I'm a DHS type of organization that's in charge of cyber, and my job is to ensure that all of our political establishment, whether it be ruling class or opposition, are secured from a cyber security perspective. If I do a pen test, if I do a vulnerability scan, if I do data discovery and visibility and I go into the cloud or I go into servers and I look for specific data, could that also be considered spying? If, for example, that happened to be leaked or used at some point one way or another by someone with a political interest to make something go away. That to me is the biggest kind of piece of this is I get what NSO did, but NSO sold offensive cyber weapons to governments. That's no different than how Lockheed sells missiles to a government. No different. How that government uses those missiles is up to that government, and then the international community would act accordingly. The problem here, though, is we've single-handedly targeted every single offensive cybersecurity company. They're not getting any backup from any governments. In fact, the governments are shunning away and turning them down. Those are the same governments who were enjoying having them export these weapons because it really did promote bilateral cooperation and trade between the nations. But it also brought about the idea that these are cybersecurity companies who actually believe that their mission in these offensive weapons is to save lives. And at the end of the day, someone's using it to do something different. So who's really responsible for it and who should really be held accountable? That's always going to be my question on these types of stories, because it's very quick for the political class and some of the people over there to start saying, wow, this is insane. We should really hold these companies accountable. Why not hold the people who use the technology inappropriately accountable? Ask yourself that question. Folks, that's it for our practitioner brief today. We've got a lot more tomorrow. Stefan Semmelroth will be joining me, among maybe a few other surprise guests who I'm going to be pinging today to see if they'll join me tomorrow. As we do a longer show, we're going to be doing a full half hour tomorrow, but we're going to be wrapping up 2021 in a really, really fun way, folks. So please make sure to subscribe, share, comment below. Thank you for all your awesome comments. This is really, it's been an awesome year. It really has been. And I'm very, very grateful for everyone who's been tuning in daily and making me part of their morning routine. Tomorrow we'll wrap up this year, and then my favorite dad joke is tomorrow. My favorite dad joke, because there's the best dad joke, right? Is this week is like the ultimate dad joke is I'll see you guys next year, right? So ultimate dad joke. As a fresh dad, I've been shunning my my dad jokes all day long. So until then, I'll see you guys tomorrow, where we'll wrap up this year in a fun way. Till then, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.